horrible. Anyway, what it is, right? Okay, so open up what we were working on last week. So I'll close this because I was marking, right? Let's close this. Oh, not clone, close. Okay, so the testing assignment. So your group is, let me just pick up the one so that I have no clue. Okay, so let's open up the project you were doing. And it was called Employee Inheritance. Thursday. There you are. Okay, and you had completed all the classes. Like we had talked about all the inheritance, and this is the inheritance we were trying to build. So this is what we had built, right? So we had talked about that inheritance is very tightly coupled. It's not a good way of programming, but where inheritance is inherent, then you have to do inheritance. It does give you many advantages, but it does have one weak point, that it is very closely coupled. It's very tightly coupled. And tightly coupled always is a bad sign in programming, because changes in one affect changes in another immediately. So that's what the problem is. But as I said, if it is inherent, it is inherent. Right? Okay, so we had built all this. Employee was an abstract class. An abstract class cannot be instantiated, but can become a superclass. An abstract class has at least one abstract method. An abstract method is the method that does not have an implementation, right? So because our employees had a name and a social security number and many more common things that could come, we put the common things in employee. We had our getters and setters there. But we created a get earnings abstract method because all of these employees have a different way of calculating their earnings, right? So that was the picture. Also, we talked about not calling overridable methods in the constructor. Why? Because if they are overridable, the subclass may override them and even maybe mess it up. Who knows? Like you can say, I know what I'm doing. Of course, programmers know what you are doing. But if you do it the right way, then you are less prone to make mistakes. So we said no overridable methods in the constructor. So all my set methods I had removed. I had created a private validate method in which I was validating my input. Input is required. It has to be validated, and call it both from set and from the constructor. If you need a set. If you don't need a set, then it's fine. But what I've been writing, we've been using sets. So we have that picture now, right? So we know what inheritance is. We know what abstract classes is. Of course, we know about static, final, everything. We know all that. Now, how does inheritance lead to polymorphism? And it's a kind of a sub of inheritance. And what is polymorphism? And what is static binding and late binding? Binding static means it is done during compilation time, and late binding it means it is done during runtime. Therefore, it is called late. And what is binding? Which method to call with an object? Till now, it was obvious. If I say object name dot method name, it's the method of the object. Who's else? But now that we have inheritance, a salaried employee is an employee, and so are all other employees. I could be calling something like employee dot something, and depending upon where that employee is referring to, it could be referring to any of these, a different method can be called. And that's what is polymorphism. Poly means many, and morphism means forms. So I have a get earnings in each one of these, and now I'm going to show you how I can use polymorphism to write methods or to call methods in such a way that I leave it to the runtime unit to decide which one to call. Okay. Now, if a parent has a method and a child doesn't have a method, definitely the parent one is called. If a parent has a method and a child also overrides it, then it's the child method that is called. Okay. Private methods cannot be inherited. It's kind of makes sense that private methods are private, and so are private variables. Okay. So I'm going to now write a tester for this. That is what was left. So if you have this, if not, I think I must have put it on Blackboard last week. And so this is where I was testing my my employees. And be kind enough to take this out, guys. I mean, I am seeing these comments in your code, like NetBeans puts it, remove it. You have to learn to be, I should call perfectionist. You have to be. Like, you can't survive in this world. Maybe nowhere, not only in programming. You can't survive anywhere unless you do your job perfectly. That's why I always emphasize, don't say it works. It says it works perfectly. That's how you will learn. Otherwise, you won't learn how to. I mean, as I say, I see all kind of things. I mean, you're not thinking. You're putting assert statements and expected results in methods that will not even run, like they'll throw exceptions and you're still putting them and saying, oh, this should be equal. How can something be equal if it will stop before it? Or you forget to put asserts in your methods where you require them. You're just assuming it works. Can do that. Your comments should be correct. Even grammatical errors, spelling errors, not writing them correctly is a big no-no. Right? So learn. I mean, it's very important that you be good programmers. Like I would say perfect programmers. Devote a little more time, but do it well, is what I think should be the attitude. And you know what? Hopefully you will learn as you go on. But that's how it is. And it always pays off. It always pays off. Being perfectionist or being perfect always pays off. You'll always have an upper hand in the environment you work. People will always turn to you for help. They'll ask for your ideas because it matters, right? So that's what my aim is always when I teach programming. But whatever. Okay. So now my aim here is to show you how I can use inheritance to kind of use late binding, or to show you polymorphism in object-oriented languages. What is polymorphism? We always say inheritance and polymorphism. We always kind of connect it with that. So to kind of complete it, you have this from me. I'll kind of add more employees here because we added 2 more classes. Remember, there was a salaried employee and there was an hourly employee. And just so that I don't have to think of data, I kind of made it up and took a printout. It's difficult. Come on. So create a salaried employee variable. You can call it SC. I'm not using good names at all, and I apologize for that, but bad. Okay, so let's go salaried employee. And the salaried employee needs a name. And again, it's up to you, whoever you want to put. As I said, I just picked it up so that I didn't have to think. Then comes the social security number. And again, you can place whatever really doesn't work. What have I used? I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 3, 4, 7, 2, whatever. And has a weekly salary. You can make whatever you want. And that's my salaried employee. It doesn't matter. To check results, I don't think there is any, salaried employee doesn't have any computation, no. So even 300 was okay. Anytime it has some calculation, I would like to have the answer with me, right? So if this person was just a salaried employee, got a salary per week, so it really doesn't matter what you put in. And lastly, I had created a 4th employee class, and it was called hourly employee. And we'll just call them HE and go new hourly employee. And the hourly employee requires a name. And requires a social security number, which you can do whatever you like. Requires, I think, wage and hours in what order? Wage first and hours afterwards. You could be, I don't know. Is that the minimum pay right now? I don't know. The hourly pay? Must have looked it up from somewhere. There it is. I know it has increased. Yeah. That is? No. What is it? Hourly hour pay? Minimum wage. Minimum wage. Oh, that's it? I thought it had gone up. So it was less than that?
It was up to 14 in January.
Oh, I don't know where I picked the same, 16.75. Anyway. Okay, so here are 4 employees. Normal objects, you've seen them before. And if I wanted to print them out, I would kind of print them like this. I would kind of, I've done it like this, but I'll show you a better way of doing it, of course. But I've printed out the sal of the 2 string of the CE, then shown the earnings. You can call it whatever you like, and so on. Now, definitely repetition, and then I'll repeat it for the next one and repeat it for the next one. So I want to avoid that, and I'll show you how to do that. How I can do it is like this. I'll create a private helper method. Let's create a private helper method. So since this is an application that I'm writing, every method has to be static because only static methods can call static methods. Since main is static, any method that main calls has to be static again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a feature that is very helpful. Let's call it display details or whatever you would like to call it. And to display details, I'm going to give 2 things. 1, the type of the employee, so that I can give a heading like commission employee, base plus commission employee, like a heading, just a heading. And 2, I want to give each of these objects. And a way to do that is this, right? So, So this method has two parameters. One, it is, what doesn't it like? Strange. Private void. Does the void static come before it? Public static void main. Yep. Okay, static comes before void. You can always kind of keep in your mind public static void main. That way the sequence is correct. Okay, so this display details is a private static method. It has to be static because main is going to call it. And see, now what am I going to replace it with? Instead of writing this here, these two statements here, I'll kind of pick them from here. Or you know what? I'll kind of leave them there. I'll comment them out so that you see the difference. And I'm going to put them here. I'm going to replace this C by E. I'm going to do a printf statement in which I'll do the name of the employee. So I'll go something like this. And there is a percentage. Oh, I'll use the percentages. Okay. So I'll do a control F, printf. And I'll show the type here. So type. What will this do? It will replace the percentage S with the type you give it. So if I give it commission employee, it will replace it by commission employee and so on. So it will give it a heading. Then I'm showing the toString method. I'm calling the toString method with E because that's my parameter here. And then I'm calling the getEarnings method with E. Right? So this is a method that takes an employee object and a type and will print the details of the employee for me using the toString method and the earnings, because earnings I was showing at the end, right? Now comes the big question. What kind of employee? If it only says employee, how can I call it? Using that diagram, keeping that in mind, this is what you've created. Keep in mind, a salaried employee is an employee, so is a commission employee, so is an hourly employee, and so is a base plus also. Base plus is a commission employee, is an employee. So ultimately it is an employee. And now this means that I can do this. I can simply call display details with CE and it will work. Oh, it was two strings. Commission employee. That's the type and then this. Simple. This is a string, goes into a string. How can I pass CE, which is a commissioned employee, into an employee object? That's the beauty of inheritance. You can pass the reference of a subclass object into a superclass object. That's what you're doing, right? So if you want to make a note for yourself, what you're doing is you can pass the reference of a subclass object into a superclass object. So basically CE, which is a commissioned employee, its reference is being passed into employee, which is at the head, the superclass. And it can be done because of inheritance, right? Which means, bless you, which means you can do this 4 times. I'll go with, I mean, you can give it any order you want. I'm just giving it in the order which I declared them, but you don't have to. And of course, why did I have this heading? Because I wanted to see it in my printout. That's it. I mean, it's not necessary at all. That's the beauty of inheritance. A subclass object is a superclass object, which means actually I could have made this as an object here, because object is the father of all classes, and it would have worked. With, of course, a little bit of casting, it would have worked. Right now it says I don't have a get earnings method. I'll have to cast it. But what I had before is perfectly fine. Right? So now you don't have to keep, like, you don't have to keep this at all. You don't need to. This way. And that's one example of polymorphism. Why? During compilation time, when the display details is called with CE, it says, oh, C is going into an E. That's okay. Okay, that makes sense because there is inheritance. But whose get earnings do I call? Employee doesn't have a get earnings. It was an abstract method, so it will automatically call the earnings of the CE. So it kind of makes it late binding. This is called late binding. The compiler says, I'll see when it comes. because you've said it's E dot earnings, but there is no get earnings in E. What's going on? The simple reason that's going on is to E, you are passing a reference of CE, and it can be done completely because of inheritance. This is one big use of inheritance. Another big use is this. So now you had 4 different variables. I suppose a company has some employees. Definitely a company will have employees, and we may not know how many. You could put it in an array list, or you could say, oh, I have 100 employees at the max. You could create an array. You could do whatever you like. Now, when you create an array, and you'll say, what kind of array? Is it an array of commissioned employees, of base plus? No, it's a collection of everything, all. And they're all of what kind? Employee objects. So now you can do this. You can actually create an employee array. You can create an employee array, and to this, you can actually assign whatever you like. So I'll show you one way in this example. In this tester, I'll show you another one in the second tester I do. So in this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, give me some new employees. And now, since it is an array, you'll have to either give a number. You can't leave it empty. If you want to leave it empty, you'll have to initialize it right here. Right? That's one way of doing it. So if I say I want to keep those 4 values, I'll say give me this. Oh, sorry. What kind of array is it? Employee array. And you can kind of leave it here. So what does it declare? It declares an array called employees of size 4. This is one way of doing it, but if you kind of, I don't know if you've done it, I'm not sure, but you could have done it right here. You could have put your brackets right here, and you can initialize them right here. You can go CE, comma, BCE, comma, SE, comma, H, in any order, doesn't matter. That automatically gives the size of 4. So if you don't mention the size, I'll write both of them for you so that you know it, just in case you've forgotten from your first course. You can't leave them empty. You have to give a figure. That's a rule in arrays. An array is a data structure of, it doesn't like something. Same name. That's what it doesn't like. An array is a fixed sized data structure in which you can save elements of the same kind. That's what an array is. So you have to tell to the compiler, how many do I want? At compilation time, you have to say, and that's the advantage of array list. You don't have to say how many, right? But then array is a fixed size data structure in which you say, I need these many. And therefore that number 4 is required. So it could be 10 or 20, doesn't matter. I just needed 4, so I said 4. Or the other way is, if you want to leave those brackets empty, then you have to initialize it right there, as I've done. That's also possible. Or if I don't do it that way, then of course, we all know that we can do it this way. We can always go employees at position 0 is assigned the value CE. Employees at 1 is assigned whatever. So there's a long way also of doing it. I mean, whatever makes sense to you. I'm just kind of, I would definitely go something like this. And this is something I'll show you in the next example. Here my BCs and all that are already made. I mean, I'm kind of doubling it up. I first create them and then I kind of put them here. I'll tell you a better way of doing it. So here you could either do it this way. Of course, this is more work, but all is possible. The only thing you have to remember is that an array is one of the fixed size. Doesn't matter what the sequence is. Here. Okay. So why have I used an array? Because I'm trying to show you that objects of the same parent can be put inside one array, the same one. Right? That's what it is. Okay. And this can be done. It's absolutely correct. Now, a few things that can be done and cannot be done with superclasses and subclasses. Keep in mind, those super class is called super, big, right? Super means big. But the superclass does not have the authority to use methods from the subclass. It's not. It's an opposite way. It's an opposite relation. A subclass inherits everything from the superclass, anything that is possible, non-private method, instance variables. But the vice versa is not true. So if I have an extra method, whatever that extra base salary, get base salary, I can do it. I can't call it with a superclass variable. I cannot do it. It's not allowed. Okay. So now how do we kind of use this array? So the advantage now is that you can collect elements or you can collect objects of different kinds together into an array as long as they have the same parent. Okay, that means you could have actually created an object array and you can put any object inside it. Logically, we can do it. Now, what I want to show you is if I have it in an array, I have a few advantages. What? I can use loops. And the easiest loop is the enhanced loop, because the for each, as we call it in other languages. So I'm going to say an employee comes out of this employees array. And now instead of calling that display details 4 times, I could simply call here it with E. Of course, the problem here is I can't pass it a type now, because I don't know what, I mean, I can check it. I can tell you how to check that too. But if I was calling display details from here, it needs a type from me and it needs the E from me. Passing E is no problem. E is right there. But the type depends upon what kind of employee it is. Okay, so we'll do that. I'll show you the print. You can print it right here. Nothing stops you. You don't even have to call it. So let's go system.out.println, or let's just take those 2 statements. I can take this one. I can definitely take this one. Be careful with printfs that they're done on the same line or whatever. Okay, now can I do this? Can I simply say E, let's see if I can do it. It's an employee. E dot get base salary. He's an employee, but the get base salary belongs to which class? The base plus. E can do it. E is the super class. E cannot see methods of its child. It cannot. It's logical. Like, how can it? You'll say because it's super, but remember, super is above and the subs are below. So don't go by the hierarchy, just go by logic. A super class object has less data and code and instance variables than its subclasses. So a new instance variable that was added, or a new method that was added in a subclass, cannot be accessed by E. Then you'll say, oh, the whole purpose is lost. Then all I can do is print out E. Can't I check what kind of employee you are? That would be nice if I can check what kind of employee are you. That would be handy, because it's just a collection. So there is an operator to check that. That operator is called instance of. It's an operator, and you can check what's inside my array. So I can say, are you of type commission? Are you of type base? Are you of type H, hourly, or are you of type salaried? I can do that. So let's see. So this is not possible. This is not possible. A superclass object cannot call any method, any public method, of course. We only talk about public methods because, like, privates are already out anyway. But maybe cannot. I can't do this. I can't. It will not work for me. It gives you there. If you bring your mouse over it, it will say cannot find the symbol. Employee class doesn't have a get base salary. It never had it. But you could, of course, say get name and it will work. There's no problem in that. You can say get social security number and it will work. You can say set name and it will work. So only E can only use methods and variables that are present inside it. But if I can't find out what kind of employee you are, then it's useless for me. So can I do that? You could. You can say if. Now I want to say, what is your type? I want to ask this E, what are you? Who are you? And I know that it could be either one of them. So we could write a case statement. A switch would be better, right? Okay, switches. Do the variables in switch take variables of type objects? Strings were definitely added in Java 5. I'm not sure about objects. I'll have to check. I don't think so. Okay, now let's do this. This definitely I want to show you the instance of. If E is an instance of, so instance of is an operator. Okay, so it's not a method or not, I mean, it's an operator, like a plus or a minus, it's an operator. So it's all in lowercase. It's not a method. I'm saying if E is an instance of, and you could just check the class, anything. You could say commission employee, you could say base plus commission employee, you could say salaried employee, or you could say hourly employee. And once you know which kind of variable it is, then you can use the method in that particular class. Of course, base plus cannot use a method of salaried. Salaried cannot use a method of HE. I mean, there is no relationship there. But now if I know that it is an instance of, let's take base plus. You can take anything. Let's give them some raise. What were they called base plus, I'll just say BCE, okay? Here. So let's give a raise to the base plus, what am I saying? Base plus salaried, come on. There you are. Okay. Let's give a raise to the BCE employee, right? Just you could have done anything. It's not big deal. What I'm trying to show you is the instance of operator. And another advantage now I can do is when I call my display details, I can pass the name also. I know if it is a base, if it is a commission plus, I'll pass commission plus. If it is a base plus, I'll say base. If I'll say hourly, I can now do that. I can call it. So I'm saying if E is an instance of this, what do I want to do? So just so that you know, I can do this now. Now I can call my display details. I can pass, since I know it's a base plus commission employee, I can pass the base plus commission employee as a string. Take a string, normal string. And it also needs another parameter, the E, right? I can do this now. So I can do what I was thinking was, can I use a switch instead of saying if else, if else? It is an instance of this, it is an instance of this. I haven't tried objects. I know strings work now, they was never used to, but instance of is, I think, an operator. Maybe I can make another, you know what I mean, like a variable, put 1, 2, 3, 4 inside it and then do a switch on it. I could do that. But switch with an object, I haven't seen it. So if I haven't seen it, I can only test it. And this will work. So if you want, now we can remove this from here, but this was just to show you that it can be done. Now, that means, oh, I've checked, oh, it is an instance of. So can I now say E.get base salary or set base salary, something like this? It still doesn't like it. Just checking that, are you an instance of base plus salary, or are you an instance of this object, doesn't say, oh, now you can start using my methods. What we'll have to do is, you will have to use a technique called downcasting. Not recommended till you really need it, but there's a technique called downcasting in which I'm going to create a variable of that kind and then use it. So I'll have to downcast from employee to base plus commission employee, and then I can use the methods. Right? So we've used casting. We know what casting is. Casting means changing one type of value into another. Double into float, float into double. Some are explicit. Like some you have to do, it will just happen. If you try to put an integer into a double box, it automatically gets converted into a double. Right? The opposite, going from a double to an integer is not logic, like it's not allowed. But if you wanted to do it, then you will have to downcast it yourself. So therefore we say downcasting is not recommended because you may lose information. Right? But here, of course, if you know what you're doing and I want to do something with my base employee, this is what I'll have to do. I'll have to use downcasting. So let's just take a base plus commission employee, create another base plus commission employee, E1. And this is how I'll downcast it. As you do casting. And take your E and downcast it. As soon as you do this, why isn't it doing it? Okay, because here the name is still wrong. Now I can do this. Now I'm okay. So second thing that you have to remember, though the super class is super, right, at the top, but it cannot use any methods of its subclasses. Quite logical if you kind of think about it. But if you wanted to, and I mean, if in here I have to, because I'm using an array, the array is of type employee, and I want to put all kind of employees into it, and I want to do something with certain kind of employees. I don't want to create 100 variables of different kinds. I have 100 employees in my company. I don't want to do that. I want to put them together. So I use an array. As soon as I use an array, now if I say, oh, you're all of type employee, I cannot use any methods in the particular classes. But I want to, and it's quite logical. So what do? All you do is check what kind of object are you. That's all you have to do. What kind of object are you? Once you have that, then you can start using methods. So if I wanted to give this employee a 10% raise, what would I do? I'll say BCE1, set your salary, get it, and then multiply it by 1.10. That's a 10% raise. Let's say give a 10% raise. Okay, so I kind of did it in one step. You could do it in a, what is it called, set base salary. You could do it in 2 steps if you want. So I got the person's salary, right? I multiplied it by 1.10. That means I've increased it by 10%. And then I set it back. The salary of BCE1 has changed. Done. Right? So instance of is an operator that you'll have to use whenever you work with superclass objects, if you are interested in finding out what kind of object sits inside you. I mean, there is no other way. And that's how you will do it. So if you had to do something with commission employee, you would say if E is an instance of whatever, like whatever you want. But the instance of operator lets you do what you want to do. And all you have to do is you have to downcast. This is called downcasting. It's called downcasting because you're coming down the hierarchy, though it's kind of opposite. I mean, we know subclasses are more specific, have more data and more instance variables, but it's called downcasting. So this is allowed. You can do downcasting. So what did I do? I downcasted my variable into of type base plus commission employee. I got the salary multiplied by 1 point. That's all math. And then I set it back. To see that it works, you know what I'll do is I'll kind of take it from here and I'll just print it here, so that I know salary will increase. So just for this particular employee, I'm going to pass base plus commission employee. You could pass E if you like, or you can say BCE1 because it's the same thing now. It's no big deal. I mean, you could have only passed E also. It was smart enough to do whatever it had to do. There, that's how you kind of, when you work with a group of objects of the same kind, it is of the same kind because each one of them is an employee. This is how you work with it. And it should work. Right? So let's test it now. So kind of see what output you're expecting, because otherwise we'll be kind of a little lost. So I have 4 variables. Then I call all 4, but they have headings, which is good. So I'll know what is the commission employee, what is who's base plus who is salaried. So that's good. Then I create an array, and in the array, I again call it once. And then if it is a base employee, I give him or her a raise. And I again show the data again, and then the loop will go on. Now I can use display details because I'm okay. I know what kind of employee it is. I can pass the type, whatever, however you like it. And then I can pass the BC in one way. Done. Right? Let's try to test it. So if you run it, and if all is neat, who knows? There could be. Remember, we were doing all those pluses and minus or whatever. Okay, so commission employee, a commission base employee, then we created 2, see, yeah, here, I've lost my percentage N. Selected, oh, salaried employee, this heading is coming somewhere, which it shouldn't come. Maybe I put a heading in the salaried employee. See, I see a heading. We don't want it there. So we'll have to go and change in the salaried employee. The hourly employee is okay. I mean, they're okay if I was just calling them, but like they had a heading. I put one in salaried and one in hourly, and I didn't put it in the others. So whatever you like. Now, this person who is, where is the base guy? Base salary. After that, it's not very neat. Okay, here it starts again. Okay, now here is the base plus commission employee I want you to be paying attention to. Here is the person. No, that's salary. I gave him a raise. Where did I give him a raise? Employee name, earnings. This is base plus commission employee. I increased it by $800. Yeah, where is this person? It's so difficult. My mistake. I should have put something to kind of differentiate them. Okay, 2 things to be done. You don't have to do it because it's doubled it upon me. In the salaried employee, I think I'm writing the word salaried in their toString method. Yeah, see, I write it here. I wrote it here. That's why that's coming up. So we can remove that for sure. That heading can go because it's there. That heading can go. That was one improvement. Somewhere here also. No, this is okay. No, there you are. Something is wrong with my mouse. That's it. Okay, here there was another heading called hourly employee. You can remove it because I'm showing it there. Okay, so that takes care of that one. It's a format. Okay, so percentage N would be a good idea. Percentage N is always a good idea whenever you are doing formatting. Okay, so that takes care. But now, where should I say something like, I'll put something like increased, salary increased. I want to show you that this person, it's a tough one to base plus commission employee, but that's okay. Okay, so whatever the salary was before, who was the base plus commission employee? Myself. So I had 1,000. It should go up by 11. It should go to 1,100, right? And bless you. And just so that it's a little readable, I'm only making it a little neat for readability, nothing else, because I can't differentiate between my answers. Okay, let's try it again. This is just something you can also do. It's not a big deal. Okay, let's see if it is any neater. Okay, so that's my commission employee. That was me, the first person, right? That was base plus commission employee because there it is the salary. Base salary is $1,000. Then there comes the salaried and then comes the hourly. And now here is where I again start printing using my array. So that's me once. Yeah, there it is. Here is the salary increase. And it works. Notice 1,000 has gone up to 1,100. So I've changed the base salary. So the instance of operator gives you this flexibility of checking the type of the object inside your array. That's it. Okay. Now to show you though, I mean, logically we know that, but to show you that these objects are they still inherit from the object class, you can do this. I'll show you something. I can just, because we haven't done it before, I'll just show you. So where is my for employee? Where is my for loop? There you are, my for loop. Where do you end? You end here. Here. So before the for loops ends, I'm just going to kind of show you, or you can do it afterwards also. Really doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. I'm going to show you something that you may have not done or seen before, but that's okay. Get type of the class or the employee of each object. Keep in mind, a superclass reference cannot use any new method that is added to a subclass. It cannot. If you have to, and if you want to, and it's quite logical, you will need it many times, all you do is downcast it to the correct type of object and then use it. Okay. I'm going to show you, I have to use this for loop because I need the I. What was it called? Employees. What length? You do know that an array has a length. It's not a method. It's not a, it's an instance variable. It's not a method. You don't have the opening and bracket. It has length, which you can use to find out how many elements in the array. Right? And I'm using this for loop instead of the enhanced for loop, which I should be using with arrays, just to show you something. I want you to see that I can, or this object can still access methods of the object class. Right? It can, because it is still an object. So I'm just going to kind of maybe use printf to make it neat. So let's say employee. And this is just, there's nothing logical in it. I'm just showing you at position ID is a %s, %n. And you know what, just because I don't know where I'm coming from, I'll put a %n. Okay, so the first at position, employee at position D. So the value of I, right? So I just want to show you position 0, position 1, and so on. And also I want to show you how there's another way of finding the class of an employee. So from the employees array at position I, right? From the employees array at position I, get the class of this. And from where is this method coming? Not get class. I'm using it with an employees array. Employees array is an employee array from the object class. Right? Because remember, object is at top. So a base plus commission employee is the commission employee, is the employee, is an object. Employee is an object. Okay. So I'm just getting the class and then I'm just going to get its name. Just so that you see what happens. So I've used a normal for loop here because I wanted to show the value of I, and I have to pick up each one of them just to show the value of 5. You could have done without it. You used an enhanced one. Now run them again, and I would like you to pay attention to the output at the end. And this is what it has done. Well, you can see it actually. I don't have to do this. Employee at position 0 is, and notice how it writes it. It gives you the whole package name and the class name. So get class dot get name gets you the name of the class. And what I'm now thinking is that now I can use a switch statement because this is a string. I can write my switch cases, and I don't need to use instance of. I can write the cases with these string values and then do whatever I want to do in each of those. I can handle that now with this. So it says employee at position 0. You could have said I+1, doesn't matter, right? I mean, it makes it more readable for humans. So position 0 is this type of employee, this type of employee, this type of employee, and this. So you know that these are the 4 types of employees inside your employee array. So get class is a method that is coming from the object class. And it returns a class name, a class object. Okay, there is a class called class for your information. In Java library, there is a class called class with a capital C. So when I say get class, it gives back a class object, and from the class object, I'm saying what's your name, and it gives me the name of the string. Notice I've used a %s for it. So now if I wanted to write a switch statement, and switch statement does allow string variables, I can write a switch using the get class get name, and that's another one. So you see an operator, a new operator, and a new way of working with strings when you want to. This is polymorphism. This is polymorphism where you created an array of type employee and put in all kind of employees in it as long as they are in this hierarchical diagram. Doesn't matter which level. First level, second level, third, you could go to any level. Every one of them can be put inside the employee array because employee sits at the head of all. And polymorphism involves late binding. When you call something, when you say system.out.println E, it doesn't know what E is at compilation time. It's when the program is executed and the method is invoked and BCE or CE or HE or SE are passed to E. It says, oh, you want me to call the toString method of the BCE or the CE or the HE or the S. And that's why this is called late binding. So polymorphism is only possible because late binding is possible. And late binding means binding of the method to be called with which object during runtime. And static binding, for your information, is when which method to be called is that decision has to be made during compilation. That's called static binding. It won't change, static. It won't change, right? This is polymorphism. So that takes care of inheritance and polymorphism. One more topic that you should be aware of in Java, though I couldn't find a very good example because it's kind of difficult, but I'll try to explain that to you. Interfaces. So in Java, you can only extend from one class directly. Of course, you can create any hierarchy you want, and it is in a way multiple inheritance, kind of up the stairs. But at any given time, you can only use extends, and you can only use one class name. You cannot go comma, comma, comma. That's what was decided by the person who created Java, and he said, we won't work with multiple inheritance. I think experience from C++ or something is what I read about long back when Java came. That's when I read about it. Why doesn't it allow multiple inheritance? But to allow multiple inheritance in a roundabout way without creating problems or getting those issues in other languages that allow multiple inheritance, Java has the concept of interfaces. And a Java class can implement, we don't say extend, we say implement as many number of interfaces as it likes. So what is an interface? And how will I use it in programming? I'll show you with another example. So on Blackboard, I have placed for you 2 files. Please pick them up. They should be under weekly learning, and it should say something like interfaces or something. So that again, just to save time, okay? And then I'll tell you what an interface is and how do we use it and the whole concept. First, create a project and then you can go from there. So under weekly learning, not under Thursday, it should just be just sitting in the normal class examples. Yeah, they're there. I would like you to pick up the payable.java, the invoice.java, and then the two, you You could create a new one, and you could copy all your employee files also if you want. I'll only show you with one, just because I want to show you the concept. So create a new project, and in there put these two files that I have given you, and then I'll discuss them with you. This is just a hierarchical diagram that I'm going to use. So it's just a JPEG. So in NetBeans, please create a new project for yourself. This is all saved. I'll put it on H drive. Okay. Create a new, what do I want to call it? Interface example or something. I've shown you payable. I can call it payable inheritance. I'll try my best to kind of explain it to you without real world, like visually, but hopefully. So let's put this in your Thursday. Okay, so I've called it payable inheritance because it's to do with payments. That's why. And then I would like you to pick up those two files and place them here. And I should have them somewhere on my own drive too. Also, there it is, employee inheritance. Okay, there I have payable and invoice. These are the two I have given you. And I'm also copying the other ones, two of them, not all of them. Control C. And okay, so copy these two files, the invoice.java and the payable.java that I've given you on Blackboard, create a new package and put it there. And from your employee inheritance that you just finished, just copy the employee one and the, what is the easiest of all employees? And the salaried employee is the easiest. Copy those two files, okay? Just keeping it simple, nothing else. I'll pick it from yours. Thursday, okay, so that's the one. So, and it's easy, all you do is copy and paste, okay? And then if you refactor, it will automatically put the correct statement. So employee and salaried employee. Let's see. And put it in here, Control V. It will ask you, it will say, do you want to refactor? And say, do a refactor. It will automatically change the statements for you. Okay, there we are. So create a new project with these 4 files. The 2 that are on Blackboard and 2 that you just finished, an employee and a salaried employee. And then we'll go through it. And this is just a tester. Remember, by default, NetBeans creates a file by the same name as the project name, puts .java, and adds a main method to it. And some of you are so lazy, you don't even remove this line from your code. You really are busy, right? You have no time to remove stuff that doesn't make sense. You have to learn to be more, mature, I should say, or more careful of what you're doing. Okay. Okay, so let's now see. Let me try to explain what is. Why didn't you change your? Oh, it didn't ask for it when I change able. Something is wrong with my mouse. Sometimes it just won't click. There it is. It usually asks you when you paste payable inheritance. Okay, we are good. Okay, now we'll start with what an inheritance is in Java. What is it? And what is its use? What is it, Amanda? Somebody sending you messages? Somebody missing you? A lot? Okay, this is what I'm trying to create now, right? This is a class diagram for an interface. Notice how it says interface at the top, and instead of using solid lines for inheritance, it is using that dashed lines. What it means is that invoice and employee are implementing the interface called payable. That's what it means. And then when you see that solid line, that's the normal inheritance. It is saying that salaried employee is extending the employee class, the one that we did. I just picked up a small one because, as I said, the rest will automatically follow. It will work for everyone. Now let's understand what an interface is and what are the rules of an interface. An interface you could think of like a template or a framework in which for the whole project you can put in the constants that you need throughout the project in all your classes. That's its one use. And two, you can put abstract methods in it, just abstract methods, which has changed a little. Starting Java 8, you can also add default methods to it. Default means there are methods that have a body, like they are concrete methods, and they can be overridden. But before Java 8, you couldn't add concrete methods in an interface. They have given this extra advantage. And what is, so if an interface is all constants and all empty, like abstract methods, what's the use of it? Like, why is it required? Now that you have default methods in it, and when you implement an interface, by default, it is inheritance. Keep in mind, implements is like inheritance. So all the default methods can be used by subclasses, plus all the abstract methods need to be overridden by the subclasses. Now the use of interface when it was created was this. Let me kind of try to give you an example, if you can bind with it, right? Let's talk about Georgian College, where Georgian College has to make payments to its employees, right? Which is me, kind of, right? Maybe has to make definitely has to make payments to other services like people who are, we have Dell computers that are leased, so those are services, right? Or somebody does gardening or whatever outside work, that's again a payment. Rooms are being made and changed all the time in the building, or things are being done, again that's a service, right? But in each one of them, in each of these, whether it's an employee, whether it's a service, computer service, or whether it's a service which is a building service or whatever it is, it always has to give out payments, right? It has to pay money. Now, if the college has to kind of keep a budget, of course, every organization has a budget, and it wants to keep a record of all the payments it makes, then it says, oh, every one of these classes, an employee class, a service class 1, service class 2, and so on, they all have to have a method that should be present, which says what is the payment that was made, so that we have that record, right? Now, to force that every class should have a method called, let's call it get payment. I won't call it get earnings because earnings will not work for a service, right? Get payment. Every class has to have a get payment method. What it will do is it will create an interface called payable, for example, and inside that interface, it will keep that method get payment amount, for example, and all the employees, services, whatever, wherever it pays, all those objects have to write the get payment method, have to implement the get payment method. If this rule has to be enforced in an application, then an interface is created, abstract methods are put in the interface, all the classes have to implement that interface, and by implementing the interface, they are forced to write the get payment method in each of the class definitions. So every object that gives a service to the college has to have a get payment method, get payment amount or whatever, so that the college ensures that every service that is taken by the college in any of whatever, whether it be an employee or whether it be a non-employee or a part-time, whatever, has to have a get payment method, so that that payment method is called, a payment is given out, a record of that payment is kept somewhere, so that at the end of the fiscal year, the Georgian College can kind of add all the payments and say, this is what I paid, this was my budget, I've gone over or under budget. So the use of an interface, two. One, it extends, not the Java word extends, the normal English word extends, it extends the way in which you can inherit. Because only single inheritance is allowed in Java. Interfaces were created to enforce or to kind of give multiple inheritance, right? So you cannot say extends this comma, this comma, this, but you can say implements interface 1, interface 2, you can implement as many. So though they did not give multiple inheritance when Java was created, I think down the road they realized it was required, and so to the interfaces they also added default method. So interfaces give you multiple inheritance in Java, kind of, almost, right? Almost there. Not 100%, but let's say 50%. If you have even 50% of default method, that's one thing it does. That's what interface does. Two, an interface enforces rules that will be applied to all classes that will implement it. So it gives some helper methods that every inheriting class can use. So those are the default methods. Plus, it also enforces this rule that all classes that implement this interface should give implementation for these methods. So it says, oh, this method has to have an implementation. This method has to. All of these classes need to implement it. So if a particular class implements an interface, the rule is it has to give definition to all abstract methods. So it's kind of a rule. It has to be done, kind of. Okay, so these are the two uses of interfaces. So now let's look at how does it look? What is it different from how you've been defining classes in Java? So in Java, to create an interface, you have the word interface instead of the word class. That's rule number one. You can put class here, you say interface, okay? Just as I've done. The name, the public, all that has the same meaning. The only, oh, that's really, okay. The only, I don't have anything in it, this, I have no instance variables. You cannot have instance variables. You cannot. Right? And I'm talking till Java 8. Java 9 has done some improvements in the interface, but I think it is adding new private methods, not instance variables. But I don't have Java 9, so I couldn't double check it. I only read about it, but 8 I can check because we all have 8 installed. That means you can do something like this. I can do int x. I'm just giving an example. I can do it. It will give me a problem. It will say, oh, you can do that. Equal is expected. So what it wants it, you can define constants in an interface. So constants are allowed. So what happens is a good use of interfaces is all common constants that you want in your project, in your application can go here in an interface. You could create an interface called constants and you could put all your constants inside it. It's a good practice. Everything is at one place. Okay. How do you put it? As you would declare it anywhere else. So only constants are allowed. And that too, by default. By default, they are public. That's a rule, right? You can't declare private constants. Usually private constants are useless, but I mean, it's not as if like, but that doesn't mean useless means it's no use. It's only used inside the class, but I can't use private here. So if I wanted to make x a constant, I have to do it right here. Let's give it a value 10. Now I'm okay. I don't see any errors. By default, you don't have to say in front of it, but this is a public final variable. It's not a variable, public private constant. So by default, they're public and final. That's their default nature, even if you don't put it. Even if you don't put this, it's by default public and final. But I would like you to put it because otherwise it's kind of odd, and any ambiguity, I just don't like it. I mean, I like to be very particular about what I'm doing. Now, can they be private? As far as I know, till Java 8, it was not allowed. You couldn't create private finals. Sometimes you do create private final variables, minimum wage, maximum wage. We do create private variables. I mean, they're not static, but I think Java 9 onwards, you can create static finals also. But you can't till Java 8 for sure. Java 9 has made changes, and I haven't worked with Java 9. It wasn't ready when this semester started. It was still in its beta stage, so I couldn't copy.
Be useless though, because you're implementing it anyway. So
yeah, that's what I said. It's kind of, it becomes useless. But the use of private is maybe you write a default method in this class that uses it, right? So since default methods were added, the private starts making sense. Otherwise, they're of course useless if there was no other, like if we did not have default methods. So that's why I'm thinking maybe Java 9 has, I've read something about it. I'm not very sure, right? So this is the nature of, till Java 8, this is the nature of variables that can go inside a interface. Only constants, public, final. That's it. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, by default, you can have methods. You can have abstract methods. And again, by default, they are public. They're not private. So even, I can't put private in front of it. I can definitely put public, but that's their nature. By default, they are public in nature. Okay? You can't go private. And again, private ones are only, abstract privates are useless, but private defaults are still useful. They can only be called. I'm not sure. Have you heard that constructors can also be private? We've never done that. Our constructors are always public. You'll say if a constructor is private, how will I create an object out of it? Actually, some classes, when they have a private, constructors can be overridden also, overloaded. We know that, right? A constructor can call another constructor for help. You could be doing in one constructor just validating one input, in the second two, in the third three, in the fourth four, for example. The fourth one can call the rest of the three. Constructors can call each other, can invoke each other. And two, private constructors, though we think are useless, but why private constructors were created in Java, and I can't remember which class, it's not coming to my head. Georgian calendar or something, I think, is a private constructor. A constructor does not return anything. All it does is create an object. So if you want to create an object and return something, you use factory methods in a class. They're called factory methods. Like, factory means creating something, right? So constructors can be private, though it's not a common practice, but constructors can be private in a class. But then that class also provides factory methods to create objects of that class. And a factory method has the same job as a constructor, plus it has an advantage that it can return something. It's a method. It can return something. So you can have a return value out of it. You can get a Boolean, like it can return anything. Right? But constructors can be private. Like, it's a little odd, but it is. And I can't remember a class that I used once. That's the first time I encountered it. I said, oh my God, what do I do if I don't have a constructor that is public? Okay, coming back to interfaces. By default, all methods in a interface before Java 8 had to be abstract. There was nothing else that was allowed. And they by default are public. You don't have to put the word public in front of it, but they're all public, because private abstract methods make no sense. And now Java 8 onwards, you can also add default methods. Now, what are default methods? They're just like any regular method, has a body, has everything, but you have to kind of put the word default in front of it. Otherwise, it won't work. Right? And I'm just kind of going to just write it like very silly. I don't know, maybe return a string. Call it greetings. A regular method. There's nothing wrong with it. And let's say return hello there. Your interfaces can also have, you can't work without this. If you remove this, it's going to complain. See, it complains. It says, oh, this method has to be abstract. Every method is abstract. You don't have to mention the word abstract. But again, I like to kind of be clear in my definitions. So I'll mention it, but that's the default. Right? So abstract method is the default. So even if you don't write these two words, qualifiers, public and abstract, the get payment amount will be assumed to be abstract. And this is exactly what it is saying here. See, I didn't write abstract with it, but if you see I have an error, it says you can't have a body. The method cannot have a body. Every method has to be abstract in an interface. So because it was added afterwards in Java 8, they said, how do we kind of take care of this without breaking the previous requirements? They just added the word default in front of it. Now it is a normal concrete method. All classes that implement this interface can use this method or override it too. Can change its definition without the word default. Default is not written again, but it can change the definition. So this is Java 8. This is new to Java 8. And as I said, Java 9 also has something. I have the 11th edition, but I couldn't get a lot out of it. And since I don't have it on my laptop, I couldn't try it. But that doesn't mean that I cannot, but it was I was short of time. Okay, so that's what an interface is. An interface can have public final constants. An interface can have and should have, and that is why it started, public abstract methods that all its, we can't call it subclasses, all classes that implement it have to override. And it can have default methods with a concrete body, which can be used by all classes. These are actually helper methods. These are usually helper methods. For your information, array list implements, I think, 5 or 6 interfaces, collection, lists, and so on, because all these have their own methods and own default methods, and it gets it from everywhere. Okay, therefore we had used the sort method from collections. And then now 8 onwards, you can also have default methods, and these methods can be overridden. This is an interface. So it has the reserved word interface here, not class. It can only have constants, no instance variables. All its methods by default should be abstract unless you mention default in front of it. And the use of this was, an advantage was when any code before Java 8 that implemented an interface did not break. Why? Because anything new that was added in the parent classes had default in front of it, and default methods don't have to be overridden. So old code still works with Java 8. And this is the reason that they added default, saying this is a concrete method. By default, it also belongs to any class that inherits, implements me, and new classes can override it. So the old classes have not to be changed. Any class that was implementing it hadn't to be changed, but new classes have the advantage of overriding the default methods. They do. So default methods can be overridden, for your information. I'll show you they can be. It's normal overriding without the word default. That's an interface. So two uses of interface: extending multiple inheritance in Java, and two, to ensure that these methods must be implemented in all classes that implement this interface, right? So just to show you, I'll pick up this method from here. And I've given you invoice. I'll give you a break. And notice what I've done here. I've said invoice implements payable. So instead of the word extends, I've used implement. So you can go invoice extends this, implements this. You can combine the two. So you extend from a class, you implement any number of interfaces. The difference still remains. Extends, the class may not have any abstract method. It may not. Our employee does have it, but it may not have any abstract method. An interface will almost always have abstract methods, because that is what it was used for when Java started. It was its main use. So we'll take a break here. I'll come back and then I'll go through this invoice again to save time typing and coding. I've given you this class. I'll quickly go through with you, tell you again more rules, talk about default methods being overridden, and then do a tester again and kind of wrap it up for you. Okay. And next week we'll do a review plus something new, so that it helps you in your final exam also, and definitely something new from my side. Okay. Okay. Take a break, 20 minutes, and then we'll go from there.
Like class tomorrow. I have to go get surgery on my tooth or something.
Tomorrow?
Yeah. And they called me today that they only have an appointment tomorrow at noon. So.
Okay, so just look at the lecture afterwards, or whatever. We'll do more practice.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't any class.
No, not tomorrow.
Our assignment's due on Sunday, right?
I can't remember, Rick. You'll have to double check Blackboard. I have no idea.
I think so. Is there any class assignment for this class
today? No. Okay. Something.
I'm still going to be here. I
just have to talk to you about something, because it's very important. I gave you an extension on the test, right? The blue test, the unit J test.
Yep.
Right? You find that I have on Blackboard and you emailed me. Is that the correct way? I wasted an hour yesterday because it doesn't, half of it doesn't count. So either you've given me a wrong file, or is that what you did? So at the end of the day, what did you do? Did you finish everything?
I finished everything as much as I could, yeah.
What do you mean as much as I could? I'm just asking because you know what?
No, everything I did.
Catches.
Everything that I.
Did you still use try catches?
I used try catches because when I was I was watching a video on, I guess, how a lot of people use unit testing for large scale things.
Okay. But because our methods for an exception, and that's what I was interested on, you don't have to write your own try catches to write.
Okay, so I wasn't quite clear whether you wanted to see it pass and then display the proper. I did.
Try catch and let me see it. Let's see what is happening on yours. So just run it.
I
just want to be sure I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Sign up sheet, right? It should be. So yeah. All we have. This is intelligent. This is how it looks.
And then it comes up, it is tested on.
This is every test that's in there. That's-
I'm like, show you what's happening.
I know you will.
And if you find this, I mean, I'm not the one, so I don't know what, but you did test all the methods. and
Every single one,
So-
every single one, every single possibility, like when you said there's four
Yeah,
for
you
that
just
one
have,
method,
yeah,
you'll see, like, if you read through it, you'll even say, get out ID, no data.
so something either you're doing is wrong.
I think it's the way that intelligence packages it versus NetBeans, because I know when I've taken, like, your files that you've written in NetBeans, show that have worked, I've imported them into intelligence and it won't run. So I'm not
But
sure.
the tester is the tester, right?
It's an ID, it should run the
Yeah,
same way.
the code cannot change from one to the other.
That's,
Definitely.
yeah, but like, as you can see, everything's passed, you'll have, like, all of them give you.
Okay, so then you should be opting out, right now I put in there, so it's being recorded, right? So just so that you know, because I put in a, like, I thought what's going on, so I've already marked it because you're second in this. When you submit it, and I'm thinking, and I had to go back and I checked my email and I said, maybe something is wrong, but no, same file, okay, good. We can talk about it afterwards then.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So I was just watching one of the videos on YouTube channel. This video for the.
You can check in the system.
I know it's not, I have no clue what happened, sorry. I have no, both Tuesday and Thursday it happened the same thing.
It doesn't do it.
Yeah, Rick brought it to my notice.
We have a copy for this.
No, it's a live. I don't know what happened. Both week 10, Tuesday and Thursday, guys. I don't know if you're watching YouTube, but week 10, for some reason, I have no clue what happened for Java, both Tuesday and Thursday. It's, the camera is facing me, not my laptop. And I have no clue and I have no recording, nothing. I don't record it. It's just live. So if it's gone, okay. When Rick sent me an email, I said, what is he saying? I opened it and I know I should just remove them. They're useless, right? Same mistakes, same marks. You've missed the same things, you've done the same things, you have the same marks. You didn't have to check it. Only difference was, of course, the data is used. But if you have missed a certain statement in one method, so it should. So how can you do the same? Can happen to you. I don't know, you have to give me an answer, right? I told you, same
I don't
problem.
know, I don't think you.
I don't have to check it again. Same problem.
What he gave.
As I said, anything can happen, right? We are writing 20 methods. If one of you forgets one, and the other one also forgets to do the same. I don't know. Whatever it is the same, whether something is present or something is absent, whatever is wrong is wrong.
Create an account, where it starts on it, create.
If you want to do it and you
Get ready to make an account.
can use it together. Compare your answer, whatever was wrong.
Instead of minimum 2 weeks, there was 20%.
Then how can it happen? You know what I mean? Let's get it back to you and you can tell me what the answer is, right? Why what is happening? So if your method is wrong, your method
But thus, students can work with
Same
same
method.
methods of maybe 5
Am I wrong? I think
link pages. Or if
you
you
forgot an message. If it's written in extra in a method that is throwing an exception, because you shouldn't write that, you also.
sites that are going out of our.
And And because it's together, because the names are together in my list, like program sequence, course, course. So I see one after the other and then say, what's the no. So I have to note on that.
I was thinking with marker.
So no collaboration was done.
When it's equal, what is the
Why? It's not a risk. It's not a risk. It's just a rule. You see what happens when it comes back to you. Try to explain what's happening.
We have to go in.
Like you could copy from their work or their rec. I mean, yeah, essentially you could copy their entire rec. You just won't have your unique ID on it. So if he doesn't check, because
Which students will win?
it's probably, but if he actually goes back and checks what digital signature was,
Something will be.
you don't like that. So that's
Anyway, let it come back to you and see.
Okay. But if you just print it out.
I've given my feedback, so if you got your feedback and see.
Yeah, you can, like, go to, see what is completed, then paste up with it. Just quotes, case number, dot, assigned to, dot work.
Did you send them the only upload that, all those little text files, we sent some of that. So, how do you benefit from getting? Can you actually open those and see all of them?
Yes, you should be able to upload it like the text editor, they say the text file, just change it.
So if somebody would take those, change all the zero numbers, submit it,
That would pretty much.
but if the teacher checks the back end,
If they check back end, yeah.
which he's going to, because he makes you copy all over. So you better.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the smartest thing to do that.
He's going to get in trouble.
If you were gonna do anything, like, if you were gonna try to scam on this, you should have copied it to your Rex and then export.
Shouldn't have used anything.
Also, you know, the whole academic policy.
Yeah.
Just,
I know, but I'm listening.
if you do this,
It'll kill you. No good.
no, I love Tim's class. He's such a great teacher. I mean, what's the name as long as I live? I did this class in schools now, because we were there. I have to talk to the window, but even I need to through this window.
I don't want you.
Like I said, he's such a great professor. But that, just the content.
Are you Andrew?
Hi, Tristan, how are you?
Very good. I have an interview at 3. So it's
Today?
gonna be coming out, yeah. Do you
Okay.
have anything going on in the last hour? Or?
No, I just have to finish all this and this will come on Blackboard.
Okay.
There won't be any assignment, but yes, there will be another assignment sometime soon, hopefully.
Okay. Do you think like next week or do you have like?
I think it should come up by
Yep.
next week.
Okay. Sounds good.
Because I gave it in relational, I kind of, you are not in my relational class, right?
Your relation database?
Yeah, because I teach them both, so I kind of gave it there. They're busy there now,
Okay.
and then I'll give them the job.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, thank you.
He's on your right.
Yeah, I should have put it in here, that's almost those abstract stuff. Is abstract part of polymorphism?
Abstracts are classes and methods. Polymorphism is a use of inheritance.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, is abstract unrelated to it? Because I'm-
Yeah, abstract is not related to polymorphism. Abstract is related to inheritance.
Is abstract where you don't have to instantiate the class or instantiate?
An abstract class cannot be instantiated, but an abstract class can be extended.
Yes.
An abstract method says, I don't have an implementation in this class, but if
Like we
the
call
class
it-
extends, then it is implemented. You were here last week, weren't you? No? We did abstract methods and classes last week.
I was here for the first half and my computer died.
Oh, okay, so that means, yeah, that's why you missed it. We did it. We did abstract classes last week. Yeah, you left early maybe, right? Okay. Yeah, we did. You can go through that video if you want.
And we did the inherited stuff relating to the employee.
Yes, yes. That's where employee was an abstract case.
Okay.
And then we did polymorphism in the first, while you were not here, we started doing the tester. I think you missed that. We did polymorphism in the first half hour or whatever you missed.
Is there a tester that you're going to upload Blackboard?
I will.
Is that what, for example, going to be on? Is inherited polymorphism and abstract?
I don't know. I really don't know. But an assignment definitely should come up on that.
When's the assignment coming up?
You'd ask me, Amanda.
You know what? You can make it after the exam.
Yeah.
Under a year.
Amanda, I'm hoping Monday or Tuesday. I have to get it back and mark it also. I mean, I have that tension too. Because right now you are busy with RD, the relational database, I'm okay. I'm thinking you have something to do. That's why. The relational database,
Relational database and 6 other assignments.
we are done with relational database. Yeah, so
I don't know how many classes you guys have taken, but I try to take as many classes per semester as possible. That way, I'm making the most of my time here. And you guys really like handed those long assignments off at once. Like as we done, have like a little sneaky meeting. Like, hey, this is gonna be the longest assignment we can hand out. It's hand them all at once and make them do by Sunday. And it's fun. And you're like, yes, just what I wanted. Weekend. You guys drinking more monster than any human being should ever ingest, and
yeah, one more assignment in Java, and then of course both final exams. That's what is left.
is
No more assignments in database?
No more assignments in database. No, it's done. Database is done. I wanted to do one on normalization, but I'm done now. I'm done marking now. Yeah, I had one more on normalization.
is that a template for the one that's due on Sunday?
You mean template means see like help? Whatever I've done in class, everything is recorded.
What? For what? Oh, nice. That's cool.
Mhm.
What exactly do you have to do here on this part?
This is what it created for you, right? Remember how I said that I'm not I don't think if all relationships are okay. So you have to test whether what it says here, one is to many, for example. Is it a true relation? Is it right? Has it drawn it correctly? So these relationships say that one rep number can occur many times in the table customer. Double check, is that okay? Because, for example, customer number 1 has rep number 1. Customer number 2 can also have rep number 2. Yes, this looks as if this is okay. 1 is to many is the relationship. So it draws it for you, but double check that it is drawn it for you. 2, for me, when you take a printout, tell me that this is a key. This is my key. And if there is a foreign key anywhere, which there will be here, please tell me that this is a foreign key and because I don't know nothing about it.
But here. Can you go to this one here? It says. foreign piece here? So
Yeah.
like we already know, you just need to put them there?
In the diagram, you have to write it from.
Okay.
These are foreign. So it's the opposite. Keep in mind the diagram is made first and this is written after. So when you're giving me the diagram, I'm saying, well, this is what your database is. So I gave you the data, like I gave you the script. But if I gave you the diagram, you should be able to create the script from there. So if I don't tell you what is the primary key and what is the foreign key, how will you make your script? It's the opposite. You first create the diagram, the ERD is created first, and using the ERD, you create the script. So you give it to me as if I don't know what the script is. Okay? So you tell me what is the primary key, you tell me what is the foreign key, and you tell me the relationship so that when I make it, I know. Okay? So it could be wrong, it could be right. I don't know. Maybe it is drawing the right one. I don't know. But I found that there was something ERDs were not correct in the document.
What about, for comments, like we got our names, dates?
Yeah, name, dates, and this, and every document, every one of the, so, for example, where you've done databases, why come your name is here? So your name and everything goes at the head, then this is one section, you can say, like I used to do, drop database and create a new one and use it. And then in front of table, you will say create a table, populate it with data, like we used to do right from day one. I want that, all that comment.
So, but for the questions, like,
For the questions, no.
Using.
For the
No
question,
comment?
just no,
Just
just
the
one,
number?
just the number.
okay, because I was pasting them in just so I didn't have to keep looking,
Yeah, you can paste it in, but when you are done, remove it.
just the number.
Just
No
the
comment.
No comment. Because you know what, at the end of the day, if I have to take printouts, I don't want to waste it.
That's how you're showing.
But is it also with this rep number?
Is that the common field?
Yeah.
What is it? Relational? No. Okay.
Here's like an example.
My class is the only time when you can do your work.
Gives you the right answer. If I were to go about just using things with one state, that also would make it error.
Okay. Okay, it's fine. You can.
What about the soft copy for the EPR diagram? It's due
Yeah, it's
Sunday.
due Sunday, right? So,
You bring it the next cut, just the diagram part?
okay, so you know what, I put it on Blackboard. You'll either make it or do something, right, by paper or whatever. So you'll have a picture of it for sure. Submit it on Blackboard and then give me the copy next.
Okay.
So I'll put that announcement on Blackboard saying that the copy can be submitted via Blackboard, but it has to come to me next week. Okay?
That's for relational.
Relational, yeah. I'll remember to put it today or tomorrow.
So I figured you were done already.
Pretty close. Yeah, there. I got 5 questions. Give myself a few times
This is how you define the chart. And order of line.
I hate like that shit. If I was working.
So do I. That's what frustrates me so much.
Because you can only have one order. Whereas order of line, you can have multiple orders.
Although I think it's so pretty
And
easier.
your parts.
No.
Oh,
No, that's sorry, more of a question. But for some reason, when I look at it, the way that it's done, it makes more sense to me. Right, with the multiples of that.
That's why I said to
5.
And then this one's down here.
The last ones.
So there's actually more. There's actually like
I put a lot of time in those last 2 days. It might not be hard, but.
math section. Well, we've done that already. But there's zero. Yeah, I think we're- This is just Notepad plus plus. I hardly ever use this. The only time I use this is when I would never work. I just do it to pull up code really fast. It doesn't slow my computer down. Whereas if I use like, I got a bunch of them on here, like add supply, I gotta sit there and wait for it to load up anyway. So,
You just have to double check. I found something wrong in one. Remember I was mentioning it last week when you were doing the invoice one? If it seems okay to you, it's fine. I see this one is correct. So I haven't seen all of them, but I just, one rep number can occur many times here. So that's a 1 to 1. It's part number.
Part number can only occur once in the part,
Yeah, it's the primary key.
but you can have multiple parts
It is
with
different
multiple orders on
on
the
the
line.
Yeah, so I don't remember this, I don't remember my tables yet, because I haven't seen them, so I'm not saying anything. It could be right? I don't know. You just have to double check that it is all I'm saying.
The yellow is the primary key.
And the red is the primary plus, it is a key for sure, but it is also.
The red means
Yeah,
Getting it
because
from
it,
the primary
yeah,
key.
exactly, yes, yes. So it is a key also, it's a primary key also, but it is also. Right? Yeah, so that's all you have to put in notes one. If you're giving the colored printout, then say yellow is the primary key, red is a foreign primary key. Legend, yeah. Yeah, that's what you do.
just describing.
Yeah, and then you can tell me that infinity means many, one to many. Because I mean, I know it, but I don't know. When you give me something, I don't know. Okay? Keep that in mind. Yeah, you're just pretending that you're giving it to a client. So whenever you do an assignment, think of it as if you're doing it for a client who has no knowledge. No. It's not technically, he's not or she's not technically savvy, right? So that's why we draw these diagrams. Because diagrams everybody understands them. So you can use the 1 to m and say m stands for many. Infinity is not everybody knows infinity, right? We know it. The crow's feet also, if you kind of think of the other diagram, it draws the crow's feet. So these means many.
Okay, guys, let's sum this up. Let's finish this. Okay, so we already know what an interface is now. We've kind of talked about rules of interfaces. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a class called invoice, right? So I'm thinking about payments, where payments have to be made. Payments have to be made to employees, and payments have also to be made for services. And this is something that is being bought. Okay, so it's something that is being bought and it has to be given a payment. So this class implements payable. This is how you implement interfaces. So you don't say extends, you say implements. And the option in Java is you can go as many number of implements as you want. Implements payable, comma what, and so on. So multiple implementation is allowed. And that kind of gives you inheritance extended beyond only one class. Now the rule is if invoice implements payable, then it must, I'll come back to what I've written the other ones, but it must have this method called get payment amount. It must override it. If it doesn't, then you're going to get an error. Notice I have an error. It says, oh, where is that abstract method? So that's a rule. So like in extends, when you extend a class and there is an abstract method and you have to override it. Similarly here, if it has an abstract method, and of course, many interfaces will have many abstract methods, you have to implement it. So what have I done here? I've taken the quantity of the invoice and multiplied by the price per item, and that tells me how much I have to pay for that particular item, right? So that's how I've written get payment here in this invoice. Usually how do you pay? How many did you buy? What is the price of each? Multiply, and that becomes the payment. The rest of the class is not tough at all. Like it's very simple class. I also found this somewhere when I was reading. You can also give this comments for any class that you override. You can say add C java.lang object toString. You're saying this class has come from there. You can look at its extra information there. Something, but it is just a toString method that is showing me the invoice, getting me the part number, the description, the quantity, and the price. The rest of the class is kind of what we've done. I've again kind of paid a little more emphasis on if instance variables are final, then you have, guys, please, if instance variables are final, then you have to initialize them in the constructor. That's the only, that's important, right? You cannot write set methods for them. You cannot even write private set methods for them. That's a rule. So I kind of created 2 final and 2 non-final. I mean, I could have said all were final, but again, just to show you, the part number and the description are final. You cannot change it. The quantity and the price can be changed, though they are also not changed once in the invoice. I mean, you don't make mistakes. But again, I mean, I just made 2 finals and 2 non-finals. And again, part description is a final variable, so you have to initialize it right in the constructor. That's the only way you can work with final variables. The other 2 variables are normal instance variables. So I'm calling validate quantity, and what I did a little differently here, I did write a private validate quantity, but I made it to return a true or a false. So all it does is returns true or false. If it returns true, it is okay, it has been validated, else it will throw an exception. So I want to show you my validate method. Writing it different is just to show you something. So look at the private method now. So this validate, again, I'm not calling any overridable methods from the constructor. That rule you don't forget now. We'll follow it even in your advanced Java or wherever. Till now, because we hadn't done inheritance, I was doing it. But now I won't for the rest of the semester, whatever is left. So look at my validate method. It's kind of, I've made it concise and precise. I've said return, because it was a small validation. If the price per item is less than or equal to 0, return false, else return true. So instead of writing an if and so on, I kind of made that condition here and passed the not of it back. You could have used ternary operator also. So my validate quantity methods are now returning a Boolean value. They're returning Boolean values. They're private methods, of course, and they return Boolean values. Another way of writing it, right? Till now, I was writing all my code in validate. If this, throw an exception, else this. I just made them Boolean here, just to show you that there are various ways of doing the same thing. So notice how I write my validate, and since they return a Boolean value, I have more code here. So I preferred the way I was doing it, but this was something I saw and it was neat. So I'm checking. If it is a valid quantity, assign it, else throw an exception. Same with validating the price. If it is valid, it's a Boolean. If it is valid, assign it, else throw an exception. So the code does increase. This code, which was only at one place now, is also here. And of course, the set will also require it. Same thing. If it is valid, assign it, else throw an exception. And similarly for set price. If it is valid, use it, else throw it. So another way of writing your validate methods. But the rule hasn't changed. Validate methods are private, and I'm not called any overridable methods from my constructor. The rest of the code is not that tough at all to understand. There are get methods, and there is the constructor. The constructor should call the super. Now, who's the super for this? Who's the super of this? It is implementing it. But who's the super? Object class is the super. So keep in mind, implements is kind of inheritance, but it is not inheritance. Okay. I mean, the super call is still to the call of the object class. So I don't need it. But we've kind of said, oh, it should be the first statement. So I've put it here so that you don't forget. So the call is being done to the object class because this class is extending. So if I had to add it to my class definition, this is where I would add it. This is how you write it in its complete form. Extends a class and implements this, comma, this, comma, this, comma, this. You can implement as many classes as you want. There is no rule of how many that you can. Extends has a rule. You can only extend from a class, but you can implement as many interfaces as you like. And that's what happens. Java library is full of it. Go and try to look. And array list is so common. You've used it so many times. Try to look inside it itself. It has taken things from different interfaces. So there's a collection interface, there is a list interface, there is a linked list. It's all there, and it has just implemented those interfaces. And as I said, it becomes a rule. All abstract classes have to be implemented. When I removed it, I had an error. On the other hand, this default method, if you want, I mean, if it is required, you can, I'll just put it here so that I can remove it then. You can override it if you want. But if you override it, you don't kind of put the word default, but you can override it. This is allowed. So default methods can be overridden. Okay. So that is the advantage of default methods. And since it was an after addition in Java 8, it took them a while to do it, but now you can override them if you like. And if you don't override them, by default, it takes the definition of the parent class. That holds, like it's there to be used. If you don't change it, if this class does not implement it, it just uses the old one. And of course, if you're going to override it, you would do something else here. I mean, hello there. I mean, how are you something? Whatever. So this is allowed. But keep in mind that you don't put the word default here again. You write it without default. Till now we've learned that overriding the signatures must exactly be the same. But remember, the signatures are only till here. Public or private, or those are not part of signatures. Also, if a method is public, you can't make it private in a child class. You can go from wider to narrower range. Overriding will always, if you're overriding a public method, it should remain a public method. If you're overriding a protected method, it should remain a protected method. Private methods cannot be overridden anyway. But you can go down this, you can make this private. You can make it private. You can go down. You can constrict it. So these don't change. These specifiers don't change. So you can override default methods if you like, but you have to implement abstract method. That's a rule. If not, then that class has to be abstract. Right? That's the only thing. If it cannot, then it has to be abstract. So this can be done. I mean, it's not very useful for us, but I was just showing you what the default method is. Okay, so there is my class is ready. An invoice class absolutely not related to employee at all. Though my picture here says, oh, but they're not related. The common thing between them is that they're both getting payment. An employee also is paid and an invoice is also paid. And since they have a common method, and any application that wants to keep a track of payments being done to different objects will use this interface. So there has to be a get payment amount. Okay. Now let's come to employee. What changes do I need in employee? So let's open your employee class, which you have from your previous one. I have to add, I won't say extends, but you can, of course. It's going to implement that interface called payable. The extends object was just to show you, right? Okay. It's an abstract class, that's okay. As I said, a class can be abstract if I didn't implement it. So it's an abstract class which says it is going to implement payable. Why is it abstract? Remember, because it had an abstract method. The get earnings method was abstract inside it. There, that's an abstract method. So it has to be abstract. As soon as I say it implements payable, it isn't telling me. It should say, have I written it correctly? Payable, yes. It should give me an error saying you have to implement that. Maybe, okay, give me a minute. Why is it not complaining? It should say that since you're implementing it, you have to implement that method. You go, yeah, I have to. I should be seeing it. Unless I've picked up something that already has it. No, it doesn't. It should tell me. As soon as I add implements to it, it should say you have to implement this method. It won't say anything about the default method, but it should. Why is it not saying? Oh, because it's an abstract class and this method is abstract. Oh, okay. Okay, I get it. Therefore, you're getting a warning at least? Yeah, it should say something. It's not even giving me a warning. Okay, so I'm going to do this. Where do you see? Oh, there it is. Surround with implement apps. No, create test class. No. Where do you see the warning? Where do you have the warning coming? Anywhere? Like a specific?
It was on the sidebar on the number line. You were just on it.
Yeah, but it was saying.
You have to click on payable. And it'll go on.
It's saying something here. Oh, it's saying it in salaried employee. That's strange. I should see the same kind of, because it's an abstract class, that's why it's not saying it. It says, oh, it's an abstract class, so it's okay. If it doesn't have it, doesn't have it. But I don't like that idea. Suppose I do something like this. It would be nice to kind of have the exact error. Employee is not abstract and does not override abstract method get earnings in employee. What is it saying? Have I picked up the right class? Do I have the right statement? Yeah, I have payable inheritance. The error is really odd. Like it says employee is not abstract. Okay, I understand that. And does not override abstract method get earnings in employee. Where comes the question of overriding it?
That's weird. Yeah, NetBeans actually like created a method for me with an override automatically.
Oh, it does? Oh, that's what I'm saying. Where is it? Let me do a control F. What was it called? Get payment amount, right?
Yeah.
It's not searching for me. I'm thinking, how come, why is it not complaining? NetBeans is not that smart, is it? Okay, let me try. So I must see that error. It's talking about a weird error. Is it somewhere at the end? No, there is the end of my class. ToString, get earnings. Okay, for a minute, let me try to do this. It should complain. Now, is it making any sense? Now it's making sense. That's really strange. Now the error message is making sense. I wrote a class called employee and I said implements payable and it says, oh, you have to have the get payment with. The error messages before were not very clear, but this is what it should say, right? So I kind of made it a normal class first to say, oh, it gives me the error and then I'll make it abstract. Very odd. Anyway, so let's do this then. Okay, so it says you have to write the get payment method, but now we are back to square one. I do not know how an employee will be paid. Therefore, we made our get earnings method a abstract method because the way each employee is paid is different. So I have no clue. But what I can do is I can act a little smart. And what I'll do is I'll take this and I have to implement it. I'll go to my employee class and to work around it, I will do this. I'm going to implement it for sure. Oh, cancel. I'm going to implement it for sure. I'm going to remove abstract from here and see what I'll do. I mean, you have to think of ways of doing it. And I'm going to say return whatever you get from get earnings. I've given it a body. And I will make my get earnings, I'll put it back to abstract. So now see the advantage. I've kind of played it around. The get earnings I've made abstract because every employee will have its own implementation. But because I had to implement this, I said, whatever the get payment amount will return, whatever the earnings are. So I've kind of double tracked it. So there are two methods by the same kind of use, but there was no other way I could work with it. I want to keep this abstract. So I said get earnings is abstract. It will be overridden in the salaried and every class. But here, whatever it gets, it will return it. Right? So I've kind of made a point. And of course, now since I have an abstract class, I'll have to bring it back to abstract. This is kind of not too good of NetBeans. Now, oh, wrong place. No. Where do we put the abstract, before or after? Abstract class abstract. Afterwards? Before class, yeah? Right, I thought I was doing it right. I had that red squiggly. Okay, must be my mistake, my spelling mistake or something. There. So now my class is complete. One, employee has implemented the payable interface. So whenever it implements, it has to give an implementation to get payment amount. I did that. And since I didn't want to write any code in it, because the whole purpose is every employee is paid differently, I said, okay, return whatever is the value in the get earnings method. And I left my get earnings method as abstract. Right? So it was a workaround. But what have I done? Now, every employee that extends from salaried employee has to implement get earnings. Now, once it implements that, and if I say get payment amount, it will return this earnings. Job done, right? So I've kind of worked around it, but I've made it work. This is now, what have you forced? One, you have extended inheritance. So now salaried employee can use all the methods of its parent employee, plus it can also use the default method of the interface. It can. You can call it with it. If you call it, it will, since it has not overridden it, it will just use the original one. So you have extended inheritance, kind of, you have. Two, you have also made sure or enforced this rule that every class that implements the payable interface does override the get payment amount method. So a rule has been imposed. Every object of Georgian College who gets paid has to have a get payment amount, right? Now to write the tester. So the classes are complete, all of them are complete. So a very small example, I've only picked up a very small example because I could add more classes here, all my 4, they will all work. But then the more I write, the more testing I'll have to do. So I'll keep it short. So this is your class diagram and I've exactly implemented it. Notice still employees in italics, that means it is an abstract class. All other classes are concrete and this is not a class, it is an interface. So you just see the word interface in the bullets. The broken line says that it is implementing the interface. The solid line says it is extending the class. They're two different things. Now let's write the test. Let's see how the tester works. What should I do in the tester? Very neat. Same concepts will hold. The first concept I'm going to, come on. Okay. The first concept I'm going to do is, and since we now know about polymorphism, I'll just do polymorphism now. I can now create payable, that was the name of my interface, right? And I can now create payable objects. I mean, it's because of extension, right? Okay, so let's call it, I don't know, payments. I'll make an array. And you can actually go new table. So I'll show you the other technique I was talking about. And it is an array. And I'll kind of start with here. And I'll just make it so that I can put my statements. I'll say of array declaration in different lines so that it is neat. Okay. Now the first, I can create a new invoice object right here. What did new invoice need? Invoice. Part number, part description, quantity, and price. String, int double. String, int double. String, part number, description. String, int double. Int was what? Quantity. And price is, oops, sorry. Yep, quantity. And the price is $20. Double, it was a double, so I'll just go easy. That's my first object. You can do this, like you're just initializing it right there. Let's go with another invoice. So these are all payments that need to be made by the company. So it's kind of collecting all payments to be made in an array called payments. Let me try array list. I'm sure I can do it. It's not a big deal. Let me try this and then I'll try that. And then I need a new salaried employee. And the salaried employee needed a name, needed a social security number, needed a, salary per week. Third object. Look at the combinations are so odd. What is the relationship of invoice with an employee? Nothing, but they all get paid, right? That's what it is. And then let's create another one. Let's create another new salaried employee. Of course, these don't have a name, so let's just put Jared in. Let's give him a little more. He's on vacation. He should get less actually. And then let's change his security number or socials. Okay, and let's remove this comma. I mean, you could create as many as you like. Oh, it doesn't like something. Oh, semicolon is missing. Only tell me. So here, I've created an array, and I told you I can do it this way. You don't have to create objects unless you have to name them. You can just create an array like this, and I'll just try it. I'm hoping. Oh, and why not? Can I do this? Logically, it's just a collection, right? So instead of making it an array, can I say oh, logically it doesn't look wrong, but I don't know, like I'm not. Oh, this one is saying it's not available. Alt enter. What doesn't it like? New array list. Oh, it doesn't like something. Oh, the names are same. That's why. I'll just call it payments 1 just to see. Yep, logically it's right. It's fine. You can create an array list too. You can create any collection that needs. Right, and that makes it so flexible. Like here you have a collection that can have objects of different kinds, not related to each other at all. That's another advantage, or you could say a plus, whatever, a corollary of implements. You are putting together unrelated objects. They have no relationship with each other as per se, but they have a bigger relationship with the application you are running. Like any big organization will deal with different kind of objects. It's not limited to only one kind of object. So you could always create a collection of different kind of objects by using interfaces or using inheritance. So you can do an array list also. Like it does it, I'm sure, because if it's not saying syntactically anything is wrong, I think it will work too. Right? So this is polymorphism. Okay, so I'll just kind of remove it. Now let's go forward. As we were doing with anything else, it will work here also. Okay, so I have an array here, and I've created four objects inside it. I didn't give them names this time, just to show you that I can also do it right in my declaration. In the previous one, we went CE, BC, or whatever. You can do it right here. The disadvantage, of course, is, but they don't have names. These objects don't have names. They're just here for the use inside the array. So let's use our for enhanced loop, right? Where we kind of say whatever is coming out of payable is payment. You can call it payment is already there. Okay, payment coming out of payments. Am I missing? Okay, what do you want to do? Anything now? All that, I mean, it's just a normal loop now. You can use your instance of, you can use your get class, you can just print. And notice what will happen, polymorphism. Let's print out. Each of them has a toString method. Let's do it, right? Plus, let's also try this because this is something new we've added. Let's do a printf just because it's a payment amount. How much are you paying for this service or this person or whatever it is? And percentage %2f. Are you aware we can always put this? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you've thought about it. We can do this. We can do this also in our format specifier. You can say percentage %10.2f. For example, what will happen is it will give you a size of 10 columns. It will put 2 places after decimal, the rest 8 before. If the place is bigger, it will put blank, 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 and then it will put the value. It's just like I've only used %2f till now, but that's possible when you want a particular size. It will not look too neat if you kind of put a dollar in front of it, because what will happen is dollar, blank, 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 and then it will show you the value. Then it won't look neat. But you can give sizes to anything you've used till now. We did it with strings last time. Remember, I did it with strings. You can do it with D for integers. You can do it with F for floating point numbers, anywhere. And they come handy when you're trying to create tabular structures. That's when they come handy. I just showed them to you. They were not very neat in mine, but like they can be done. Okay, so I should be able to do this. I'm hoping my brackets are right. Table, are you okay? Yes, you're okay. And main, you're okay, and you're okay. I think we are good. Otherwise, it will complain. I mean, it should be complaining already. Again, notice the beauty of polymorphism here. This array has unrelated objects inside it. They could be invoice objects. They could be salaried employee objects. Those are the only two I have. I cannot have employee objects. We know why, because employee is a abstract class. You can put that. You can put invoice and salaried employee objects inside it. Of course, if I had created a bigger hierarchy, I could have added employees of type hourly employees and base plus commission employee or whatever and whatever, right? Everything was possible. And now, then what did I do? And it took it. It's fine. Then what did I do? I said, I called payment as per se, and payment is of type payable. Now it is smart enough, using late binding, it is smart enough to call the toString method in this sequence. Oh, both, I copied them. Oops, okay. So let's do P2 and let's do keyboard. Just to see that the answers are different. It should be, of course, and keyboard will just go $50. They will just go 4. Right, and then it is smart enough to call the correct toString method. And just so that you know, remember that hello method, just to show you. That method was called At default method. Greetings, right? Greetings. Oh, I haven't even completed this. What do we want here? We want to go payment dot get payment amount. There it is. That's how you will see the payment amount. And here, just so that you know, the greetings method. Payment, show me the greetings method. Not show me, execute the greetings method. So the type payment is of type payable, but because of polymorphism and late binding, automatically the toString will be called for invoice 1, 2, 3, and 4, like the way we've written it, P1, P2, and then Anju and Jared. It will also show the get payment amount for all four. These are salaried employees, 300 and 500, right? And then it will also show the greetings method. Now, since greetings method was not overridden, let's override it in one and not in another. In invoice, just override it. Okay, so remember I was overriding it, though it was very silly, but I did override it. Oh, then I removed it, did I? Okay, I removed it. Let's put it back. No big deal. Just to show you that it will work properly. Okay, so it was public. It had default, which will not put. It was returning a string. It was called greetings. And I will override it. And the advantage of putting an override here is I don't make any mistakes in my signatures. And then here I say return, how are you? Here. Oops. Just very simple. Okay, so I have overridden it in invoice, but I have made no change in employee. Right, now let's come back to the tester. So you should know how it will work, like by virtue of now understanding inheritance. The first payment will show P1.toString, P2.toString, and then toString for the salaried employee, and then toString for this salaried employee. They don't have a name, right? And then it will show the payment one by one, of course. It will show the payment amount for this person. So 2 into 20, 40, 4 into 50, 4, 5, 20, 200, 300, and 500. And lastly, since the greetings method is not available in the salaried employee, it will use hello there from its parent, kind of parent, from payable. And the other two, the invoices will say, how are you? Right? That's what I'm expecting. And just so that you can read one go at a time. Just easy to read that way. Okay, now let's try it. And of course, as we did in the other one, you can also use instance of here. You can also use your get class, get name. You can do everything that you've done there. If you want, I can show you a switch statement. It's not a big deal. We should be able to do it. I haven't tried it, but logically we should be able to do it. Run it now. And once you run it, see how 4 unrelated objects, the two are coming out fine. Oh, percentage n is missing. So notice it says P1 mouse, that is your toString method, the name of the part and its description. There are 2 quantity, price per item is $20 and payment amount. This is what is coming from 10.2, guys. It's taking a total space of 10. And since 40.0 only requires 4, the rest 6 are blank. So here it won't look neat. Why? Because the $ is here and there are 6 blanks in front of it. But you could use it, like that's how 10 is used. And of course, the how are you is coming in the same line just because. So let's do that. Payment amount, put a percentage n here. Remove the 10 now because it's kind of untidy, but just so that you know that it exists, right? And run it again. Okay, let's look at it. So mouse 2, 20 into 2 is 40, and how are you is the overridden method in this class. Remember, I changed it to how are you in my invoice. So default methods have this big advantage. Use them if you need them, otherwise override them. Same as inheritance. Same with the other one. 4 into 50 is 200, and then now the third person. Now remember, this is coming because of some extra blank somewhere. I don't know where, but somewhere. I must have given it a size and then blanks in the beginning. So employee name my security number, the weekly salary, the payment amount is same as get earnings. What did get payment amount return? Get earnings. And then hello there. Hello there is what I had in my payable interface. Right? Normal inheritance is just extending inheritance, though we don't call it super class and subclasses, but and same with Jared. Same thing, 500, 500. Why? Because the weekly salary is 500 and the salaried employee is the method that I wrote was return get earnings. As you add more classes to this hierarchy, get earnings will become different. It's no big deal. As I said, I just didn't do it. Right? There it is. That's interfaces in Java. With some advantages, of course. I mean, with default methods, it has improved a lot. Like it has become quite more powerful. It wasn't that powerful to begin with because all you had was abstract methods. So all it gave you the option was it was kind of enforcing these. But now with default methods, you have a whole range of multiple inheritance. And you can inherit any number of classes. To show you that it can be done, it's not a big job. I'll open up your array list for you because you use it so often. And the same thing will happen with the array list also. I mean, I've used an array, but it's no different. Look at its definition. Look at the interfaces it implements. So it's picking up something from serializable, something from clonable, something from iterable, collection, list, and random access. And the subclasses of array list are these, which we are interested in the first definition. So it has implemented all these interfaces. It's quite common. Why? Because anything that's related, and notice they're also unrelated. Clonable is not related to serializable at all. Clonable means it's an interface that allows you to clone, create a copy of an object. Serializable means it's that interface that allows you to save an object as an object and pick it up and read it as an object. So object saving and object reading is also available. When you do files and databases, in files you will learn how to save a whole object into the file in the advanced course and how to read a whole object. Till now, maybe you have dealt with files by saving text data, right? But now you can save a whole object so that you don't have to recreate it. You could do this. You could take its instance variables, name, phone number, whatever, and save them. Read them and again create a new object and put the values in. But with serializable, it's just an interface that you have to implement. You can save an object and you can read it as an object. There are methods that are available. Right? So it's implementing interfaces that are not even related to each other. And that's the whole concept of interfaces. And as I said, we know the get class. I can try it for you. You can use a switch statement and you can do it. And then instance of everything will be available. Anything that you've done in the other one will also be available here. It works. That sums up. So if you want, I can try a switch. I've never tried it, but I can do it right now. It's no big deal. I'm hoping it's no big deal. And it's again a new feature, not new anymore. In 5, it came in 5, but the switch statement can go something like this. You can say switch, and you can say payment. I'm hoping payment get your class. See, it's coming from the object class. Returns the runtime class of this object, and then dot get name, and it will tell you. See, it's coming from the class called class, returns the name of the entity, and it returns a string. So if it returns a string, then it can go in a switch statement, which is now also work, not now, Java 5 onwards work with strings. So if I wanted to do this, now I've forgotten my syntax of switch. Hopefully it will come back. Okay, so what's the first one? Payable interface. It's a string. Oh, it's a string. Yeah, it's a string. Remember, it was saying payable. It was giving me the whole. You know what I'm going to do? I just want to see it, what it is. I'll write a for loop here just to see what it is, and I'll put the switch. I want to. Let's do a system out println of this. Once I have it, at least I can. I'm going to put this in. And run it. That's how it says it. So it gives you the name of the package and the name of the class. Now I can try it. if it works. Instead of using instance of, which you could do, of course. I mean, we have already tried it. I'm trying to see if I can do this. I'm getting some error. Let's see. I'm okay now. And the other case is the other one, salaried employee. And you know about switch statements, right? The breaks and everything. You're aware of that from your first course. Okay. And in Java, is it called default? A default case? Can you remember from your default? Oh, sorry. Yeah, looks like. Okay. So now see the beauty of it. If it is, so you're saying get me the name and get me the class. Okay. And if it is an invoice object, maybe you want to do something with invoice, like I don't know what. So let's do something like a system out printer, and that's the easiest to do. Right? Or maybe call a method that is only available in the invoice. That way we'll know that it works. Okay. And the other way, so let's try this one first. Once the syntax is right, then I can do something else. You know, I'll just say invoice or employee. Then we can do a downcasting or everything. Once this switch statement works, the default just says what happens if nothing. So if you don't put a break, the break is compulsory. If you don't put a break, anytime it is an invoice object, it will do this also, and it will fall through and do this also. That's the use of break. Otherwise, for your information, break statements are not recommended in any programming language. Break says, okay, break from here and move out. But instead of break, you can always use a Boolean variable to break the loop, right? So it's a big no-no. Break is like a go-to statement. A go-to statement says go to somewhere else, and break also says come out of the loop and go at the end of the loop. So they're not recommended. They're not. And again, default, I mean, it won't happen in our case, of course, but we always say do defensive programming. And who knows what I've done here. So, and the last one doesn't need a break. So see what I've done, just so that I can, if this works, then instance of is kind of replaced. So I show you the payment, then I kind of show you the amount and so on, which is already working. Here I'm saying, say invoice, if it is an invoice one. Actually, I could have put this right in the beginning. Let's put it right in the beginning so that it will say the word invoice. Right, so it will say invoice, and then it will say all this. So hopefully, let's check. It's not syntactically, it's correct, but logically, I don't know. Doesn't look like as if something should be wrong, but yep, there it is. Oh, okay, it's saying invoice here. That's the, why is it saying it twice? Do I still have that for statement? I must be, therefore it's showing it twice. Yeah, there it is. No, it's showing it twice. Oh, there it is here, this statement. That's why. Okay, let's try it again now. Oh, it's still saying it. Why is it occurring twice? I removed it, right? It's saying it twice. It should only say it. It's only saying it. Oh, you know what? This must be in the invoice toString method. It's in the invoice toString method. Therefore, I'm seeing it twice. I'm saying, why am I saying the employee is only saying it once, which is right. Employee is only saying it once. The employees, this invoice is coming twice because it's also in the toString method of the invoice class. I'm sure. That's what it is. Where are you? Yep, there it is. See, it was right here. So now this has given you a way of printing the right like heading on top of all these, which is neat. You could now write a helper method, and to the helper method you could actually pass this. Instead of doing a system out println here, you could call a method, you could pass invoice to it, and you could pass, and then it could do your writing and everything. It's as easy as that now. All this can go into a helper method now, and it can be called. Right, so pick this up and put it in a helper method and call the helper method from here. It makes it so easy now. So pick this up. Let's do a Control X. Come out of main. See, once you know how if things are working, then you can start doing, or it can be a private helper method, of course. returns nothing. It has to be static. Returns nothing. Let's call it display display payment or display details, because there is more to it than just it. Let's take a type of type string. Let's take a payable payment, or just call it P. So one step at a time, see what works, and then go ahead with it and paste it here. I created a, what doesn't it like? Oh, here it has to be, let's call it payment. Then I don't have to change it at all. This work, right? Payment is done. Now the type I'll put here. I'll put a %s. I'll put a printf. I'll put a %n to start with and a %n so that there is no mess up. And then put, what was it called? Payment. No, sorry, type. See? How neat will it become? I've made a helper method now. The helper method is just giving the payment amount, the details and everything. And greetings was just to show you. Greetings was just to show you. You can keep it or you can remove it. And now, instead of doing a system out println here, I'll call the display details method. I'll pass invoice to it, since I know that's an invoice, and I'll pass payment to it. There, complete. You can kind of remove this now, because it works. And this, oops, sorry. And this. And take your display details. Oh. You can only say employee here, because again, if they're different kind of employees, then it's going to be another, but I'll say employee here. There it is. And it will look as neat as it was looking before. Let's try again. So you can kind of ignore the hello there's and everything, but notice how the employee has a heading. Employee has a heading. The invoice has a heading. You can ignore the second invoice because it's in that toString method. And there it is. Right? That takes care of inheritance, polymorphism, interfaces, extends and implements in Java. Of course, it's just the beginning, right? You have an idea. That's not the end. You could do much, much more. So now the aim is that I give you an assignment on this part. That's what new you've done from the last couple of weeks. And as I said, I did make it up. Oh, we do have time. I did make it up. The only thing is, I'm not sure how well this can be done by you, because it's so mathematical. You see, it's kind of mathematical, but if I give you the formulas, then you may work. And there is, I started with that, and then as I started writing it, coding it, I thought, oh, that's too mathematical. In each one of them, if you try to think of it, there is a shape. The shape has 2-dimensional shape and 3. So you have to think of what should be the instance variables that go into shape. Then what does go into 2-dimensional shape and 3-dimensional shape? So area everything has, but volume is only defined for 3-dimensional shapes. Then sides. Some shapes have sides and some shapes do not have sides. So it's kind of a little tricky. You know what I mean? Like a lot of work, not tricky, it's just work. And before I give it to you, I have to say these are the instance variables, these are the methods, this is what I'm. So I'm kind of backing out from here. I'm trying to think of an easier one, something that will make sense to you, like an accounts one. Everybody does banking, right? So I'm stuck here. I've been working on this since last Sunday, actually. And I'm now saying, no, it's too much to give. And of course, I've been marking that assignment, right? The testing one. So it will come. Hopefully, I can figure out something easy and where I can test your concepts rather than your logic. You know, my aim is now to test the concepts. And if I can get some, I have to get something and I'll give it to you, hopefully by early next week.
It's only 9 Java files.
I know. If I remove some, I could remove the circle, but it will take time. Like if you start making, I told you I started it and I said, oh my God, that's too much work. Like so something small and then it's more obvious. So I'll retreat from there. But that's what I started with. I'm trying to find inheritance examples so that I can ask one of you. I've done employees. I could do students or I could do accounts, because in banks you have accounts of different kinds. That's kind of an inheritance. Every account will have a customer number, a customer name, and like money. But then with others, it will be different.
This is exciting. There's some university that has a bunch of class diagrams involved.
that all are inherited. Oh, okay. Send me that link. Maybe I'll get something good from here. If it doesn't have code, but it has something like this, then I can say fill it up, right?
I think it probably has lots
Or
of
lots code on there. That's another problem you see now. Since it's not it's a problem from assignments point of view, because there's so many resources now. You almost find answer for everything, and referring to them is not a big deal at all. I mean, it's perfectly fine. That's how you learn. That's how everybody learns. But the problem comes when you don't realize that, oh, I should not be copying this code. You know what I mean? Then it kind of becomes a little problematic. But yeah, send me that site and I'll see if I can find a simple hierarchy which makes sense to everybody and then tell you to implement. Okay. I'm done for the day today, guys. It's over for me. As I said, we'll do a review plus something new next week. So I'll try to think of something that will be different for you and new for you. And then I'll also kind of do a review in it. Again, your final exam will be like a practical exam, hands-on. And of course, you'll be using your computer and you'll be allowed to use the Java API. Okay. Any questions for me? Any questions at all on what we've done till date? And I'll put all this on Blackboard for you guys, okay? Otherwise, we are done for today. I think that's the first time we finished early, like 20 minutes before time.